Welcome to Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks, a show that provides extraordinary insights for product managers who want to go faster and farther in their product management careers.
Welcome back, everyone, to Masters of Product Management. I'm Stephen Haines. The idea behind Masters of Product Management is to tap into the experiences of people who work in and around product management, or to share our own thoughts and ideas to help you learn and grow in your own product management career. So today, one of the things I wanted to talk about is this topic called product management acumen. Now, I know that you're pretty familiar with the term business acumen, but what's interesting to me is that I've been noticing a lot of comments and questions on LinkedIn and Quora for people who are interested in getting into product management. And one of the things that I see is sort of this romanticized notion behind the job and how cool it is. And all you need to do is you need to be a designer and you need to be a customer advocate. But it's a lot more complicated. So I was inspired this morning from this Quora post that actually responded to it. It said, should I become a product manager? And so one of the things that I have always thought about, it's almost like the early part of my career. And I always thought that landing a job as a product manager is almost like landing in an open field during battle. You know, you're via parachute. You're in this unknown terrain, and you got to get yourself oriented pretty darn quickly. Sometimes you lose your map. Sometimes your superiors are not available. And this idea behind what can happen in this great new job can just evaporate so quickly because you get on this treadmill, this business treadmill of, answering your emails and going to the meetings, and everybody wants your vision and your roadmap and you're this and you're that. And many of these things you've never really done before. And what's interesting as well is that, first of all, you're not alone, and no one is alone in this new journey as a product manager. And I wrote in the Product Manager's Desk reference in the introduction, I said it's sort of this accidental profession. Everybody gets there from someplace else, and sometimes they chart their course based on the paradigms of the functions from which they've come, not necessarily the path of horizontal leadership, which is really what's required. And as people get into this job, sometimes they realize that, wow, there are a lot more obstacles that they didn't know about. They didn't know how to overcome them. They didn't necessarily get to set direction because the strategies that they're expected to create are really out of their hand and somebody else created the strategy. In a lot of other cases, the new product managers just don't know their products or don't fully understand the markets. And then they end up getting very, very task-focused or project-focused and lament about that thing. And so if you are either a new product manager or somebody you're thinking about becoming a product manager, or maybe you just want to brush up on your skills, or perhaps maybe you're a product owner or a business analyst, and maybe you want to become more of a product manager, so to speak. So there are a couple of things I do want to talk about with respect to this topic of product management acumen. Now, if you work in a startup or if you work in a really small company of maybe 50 or 100 people, many of these things may not really apply to you 100% because the dynamics of some of those companies are a little bit different. Most of the companies that we work at Sequent Learning Networks are larger, they're complex, but the leaders of these companies want product managers to be business managers first and foremost, and that they are the people who have to work across functions and serve to integrate or synchronize the work of a bunch of other people so that products can be planned and developed and released and managed across their life cycle. And so there's implied in that some entrepreneurialness, if you will. At the beginning, so I digress for just a second. At the beginning of our product management essentials workshop, we always ask everybody to sort of get together around a flip chart and draw a picture of a product manager. And they're pretty amazing pictures, and we've captured thousands of them over the years. And what's interesting is that, there are people juggling and arrows shooting at them from the sky, and people walking on tight ropes with roller skates and sharks underneath the. I mean, the pictures are amazing, and the pictures really haven't changed much over this period of time that we've been doing this work. But what is it that the bosses want? All right, and what the bosses want are business people who have this uncanny ability to anticipate problems and to finesse what's needed to get everybody focused, to set the right priorities, and move the business of the product forward. And to do that, part of your product management acumen means that you have a deep context for customers or users and the challenges that they face. Number two, you've got this, and I use this word uncanny, this knack of being proactive with respect to what's going on in the market and with competitive forces. It's not that the bosses want you to react. What they want you to do is strategically anticipate what could be happening so that you can get ahead of that curve. And in so doing, what they're also wanting you to do is have some ability to envision a future solution to a customer's problem. And I'm reminded of this story. I remember years and years ago in my first product management job, and my executive director was asking me for some, lofty vision. And even though I'd studied strategy in school and all this other stuff, I was really at a loss because, number one, I didn't invent the product. Number two, I was just on the job for a couple of months. But I realized that it's not that academic version of vision what they were wanting, because they wanted me to say, here's where I see us taking this products business. And it was a very, very sobering moment for me. And as it should be for any product manager, some kind of a pivot point where you say, in order for us to move a business forward, we have to come up with some idea of where we want to go. And that's a very, very strategic orientation. And the other part of that is you've got to be able to share that vision with a bunch of other people. And you can't just go and dictate the vision and say, here's who I am, and I've got my big product manager cape on and my P on my chest, and we're going to go this way. It doesn't work that way. And in a previous podcast, when I talked about influence and soft skills and relationship building, some of those things matter. But there was something else about this aspect of product management acumen that I think is important. And that is that we as product people have to have some appreciation for what I would say is either the timing or the cadence or the work schedules of the different people in the different departments that they are involved in at different phases across the overall life cycle. And in doing that, you have to basically build your own, this map in your mind's eye, if you will. And it's a creative map, if you will, that is to inspire some collective, collaborative, creative environment that is purely focused on recognizing and solving customer problems. And the last part of this is that, and I found this true to many product managers I've interviewed over the years, many leaders I've talked to, as well as my own experience, and that is you've got to be on a continuous improvement path, all right? Whether you're a student of business, you're a student of your company, you're a student of your customers, you're a student of your competitors, that you're continuously learning about these things. And so these are some of the foundational constructs of what I refer to as product management acumen. Again, it's not a word that you might necessarily find in a business dictionary, but it is a term that I want you to become familiar with. I'll be writing more about it in some upcoming books. So part and parcel to this product management acumen is also, and I'll talk to you in a minute about some of those other skills, but people have always asked me about this question, or they've asked this question about domain experience and what is domain experience, and sometimes you really need to think about it. And what is it? Is it and from what I can tell and what leaders are telling me, domain experience means it's experience and understanding of an industry environment. It could be of an academic discipline. It could be of something that just says, I really understand this playing field. You know, if you were a sports person and you were really into football or baseball or anything like that, and you studied the players and you studied the statistics and you studied their strategies, you would have a fair degree of domain expertise that you can have an intelligent conversation with colleagues about the topic. And that's sort of where domain expertise goes. But there's this intersection, I believe, between product management acumen and domain expertise that can serve a product manager who's aspiring to be a product leader to greatness. And a couple of those things, I want to break it down into these, what I call attribute clusters. All right. So the first attribute cluster really talks about market and product. And that is, wow, if customers don't come first, then, you know, what's it all about? So understanding customers, understanding your users, understanding the competitive environment, understanding the industry environment, understanding how things change and move over time, and that's critical. But even part of understanding product is some sense of technology. And I even go back to my own earlier parts of my career, and I've always worked in software and technology companies. But even as a finance guy, I had to learn how things worked, and you know what worked in the black boxes, and how did the electrons move between the boxes, and what ended up happening, what was the functionality. So I didn't have to necessarily be a technologist, but I needed to understand some of the technical pieces of the product. And you learn that from your developers and from your engineers and from just being there and being interested and really, again, becoming a student of your product's business. So those are some of the pieces related to this cluster, related to market and product. The second cluster associated with product management acumen is your mindset. And it's very, very interesting in terms of mindset, because mindset is where you develop mental models about how things work and how you connect dots. And I'm reminded of what Charlie Munger, the vice chair of Berkshire Hathaway, would say. And he said things like, you develop this lattice work of experience over your career. And the lattice work it's almost like a basket weave. And the more things that you encounter, the more situations you uncover, the more problems you solve, the stronger the lattice work that you build. And this lattice work is constructed of a couple of things. Number one is strategic thinking. So I'll give you another side story for a second. A woman had reached out to me maybe a year or two ago, and she said, well, my boss wants me to be more of a strategic thinker. And I said, oh, no, she said, I want you to be more strategic. And I asked the question, like, what does that mean? He wants you to be strategic on Thursdays, or does he want you to be strategic all the time? And there may have been a little bit of humor and possibly a little bit of sarcasm in there, but, you know, it begs the answer to a question of this idea behind strategic thinking. And that is, we are strategically thinking all the time. Every minute of every day involves something that says, what is going to move us closer to achieving our goals? What do we have to do as a team? What does the product have to do for its customers? What do we have to do as a company? And so that's all of that stuff that's going on in this constant stream of data that's flowing in and out of your mind. And so that strategic thinking is one piece of the puzzle. And then there's this other thing called systemic thinking. There was a guy named Peter Senge who wrote a book, I believe it's called, I think it was The Fifth Discipline. And what he talks about is that you have to think of a business as a system. And I subscribe to this. I think that a business is a very dynamic living organism where things are coming and going all the time, but that organism of business needs to be kept in balance the way your human body needs to be kept in stasis. And so if we don't understand where imbalances can occur, then there's no way that we can think both systemically and strategically about what we should be doing next. And so again, this idea behind mindset is critical. When you mesh that with product and market and customers, you're going, oh my goodness, now what do we do with this? Well, the third leg of this product management acumen stool is about taking action. And what's interesting about this, early in my career, my bosses would look to me to just take action and do things. And I'm not the kind of person who sits around idly waiting for things to happen. I don't like things in a static state, and I like to move the ball forward. And so this idea behind taking initiative, even when it's not necessarily tacitly granted, you have to go and do this, all right? And in one of my books, I wrote something about this term, earning empowerment. It's like everybody would say, oh, you're empowered to act, go do, and whatever. But from in my way of thinking, that is not always taking place. And so this idea behind taking action, taking risks, making decisions are the kinds of things that say, wow, I really know what I need to do to move the ball forward. And I hope as you're thinking about the things I'm saying here, that you're beginning to perhaps knit your own lattice work of ideas behind what's necessary to fortify your own product management acumen. So I talk about these first 3 points, both product and market, mindset, action orientation, things like that. But now we have to sort of wrap it all up. How do we wrap it up? Well, we wrap it up in these softer skills, and which is, again, what I talked about in one of my podcasts previous to this. And it had to do with communication and your interpersonal skills. But I have to tell you, there's one thing that has really begun to sort of bother me, and it has to do with how people are writing. And I've been observing lately, especially in some of my workshops, we talk about writing customer narratives and writing user stories. And they've become bland. They're not characterizing a customer or a situation with passion. And I'm going to be very blunt here, that not everybody's grammar is up to speed. I see text speak. I see things that are not necessarily business professional. And I truly believe that we as product people have got to exercise and act in the utmost of a professional manner in terms of how we present, how we write, how we listen, how we observe, and how we put all of this stuff together. And so these are, if I really talk about these 4 areas, and there are certainly a few more that I could go into, if I had enough time. But I really want you to think about this idea behind developing a stronger sense of product management acumen. All right. Now, I'm going to sort of let the cat out of the bag a little bit. There's one of the books I wrote called The Product Manager Survival Guide is being rewritten. There will be a second edition coming out in the not too distant future. And in that book, I'm going to create a link to an assessment, and I'm calling it a product management acumen assessment. And that will be made available very soon after this podcast is done. And the main idea behind that is to serve as a global benchmarking tool, which means if you take the product management acumen assessment, your results will be available to you immediately, but you'll be able to compare your score to that of the entire global population. And through our beta so far, we've had several hundred people in the database. And so if there's something that you're interested in participating, send me an email to sjhaines Haines at sequentlearning.com. And when that Acumen assessment is available sometime in the autumn of 2018, I will send that link to you, and you can start participating in it and putting your own professional action plan together. So that's it for me today, and I hope that this has been a helpful and fulfilling conversation about this topic called product management acumen. And I hope you'll tune in next time for the next version of Masters of Product Management. Thanks for listening. I'm Stephen Haines.
You've been listening to Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks. If you'd like to take your career to the next level with additional tools, training, coaching, and books, be sure to visit Sequent Learning Networks at sequentlearning.com.